Okay. The first thing I kind of want to talk here about is Venezuela. So, according to a Bloomberg article today, reports out of Venezuela suggest that the government is considering adding Bitcoin or Ethereum. So, for you hodlers out there, let's do it again. Oh, I don't have it on this scene. Sorry. So, for you hodlers of Ethereum out there, hooray, to its official central bank holdings. Now, Bloomberg has unnamed Venezuelan sources, so we can't confirm the validity of this, cannot confirm or deny. I heard that it was Deep Throat. Now, they say that the country's national oil company and primary source of revenue, Petroleras de Venezuela, SA or PDVSA for short, is petitioning the government to utilize Bitcoin or Ethereum to restart their oil industry and help resume international trade with its suppliers. Now, unlike the state-issued Petro, Bitcoin and Ethereum have global acceptance and can be somewhat easily settled into fiat in order to meet financial obligations to international suppliers and customers. Now, because the Petro never really managed to get off the ground due to an expansion of financial sanctions to specifically marginalize it, I'm looking at you, Trump, a decentralized currency such as Bitcoin would be more difficult for global forces to sanction or prevent the state from trading in. So this is a pretty blatant opportunity. Wally, thanks so much for the $15, my man. Always get pumped up. Thank you so much. Shout out to you and Gunbot University. He says, do you personally see correlation between lead up to CME future contract expiration and Bitcoin price, and do you use that for trades? Learn, earn, and don't get burned. Not really. I've talked about this in the past, CME expiration. I don't really see a huge correlation, except that sometimes price does something and sometimes price doesn't. And I know that sounds like such a bullshit answer, but if you look at all the information that we have about CME futures and expiration and its effect on price 3 days prior and 3 days after, there is no direct correlation. Sometimes price does. I mean, often you see an increase in trading volume, i.e. an increase in volatility, but there's no directional bias that can be gleaned from it. And sometimes we have a big movement and sometimes we don't, is the reality of it. So because at best it's 50-50, it doesn't really make it into the way that I trade. Something's got to be better than 50-50 if it's going to make it into the way that I trade. I think it's something interesting. Now, obviously today we have expiration, of the September BitMEX XBTU19 contract. So I did say last night when I made my premium update to the subscribers in the group that, hey guys, if you're hedging on U19, now is probably not a bad time to start scaling that out and getting on over into the Z19 contract. And I think that I was, obviously I do that every time that the contract's going to expire, just making people aware that, the worst thing you want to do is go away for the weekend, not knowing that your short hedge was settled on Friday and then come back on Monday to price having declined and you've now lost a significant amount of cash. So, if I can see some different data on CME futures expirations, but all the research that I've done and all the research that I've seen just makes it unreliable in my opinion. Now, so I want to make it very clear. This is a very obvious attempt for Venezuela to weasel out of sanctions. And I think that overall, that's a good thing. I think that the country is being hurt by sanctions. And I think that the only reason for the sanctions at this point in time is a deliberate attempt to make the Petro not get off the ground. That is pretty much the only thing. So as somebody I'm not a huge fan of Venezuela, not a huge fan of socialism. And I think that that is probably the biggest contributor to the problems that they have. But I think that in the realm of the United States and the global, the global international banking community attempting to, put the Petro in its place, I don't necessarily think that's a great idea. So I actually support this because I do want, the Venezuelan people are down there suffering, and the more liquidity and access to actual fiat that they can actually get into their system, the better their lives have the potential to become. Now, if we can only hope that they overthrow the specter of socialism and actually re-engage the world with capitalism, they would, accelerate that rate quite a bit. But I digress. So I think this is good. I think this is good for Bitcoin, and I don't really care what America has to say about it. Now, the speculation is for the proposal by the PDVSA to have even been floated suggests the Venezuelan government. Let me reread this. Okay, so the speculation is that the PDVSA is actually holding Bitcoin and Ethereum already in secret, and they are not obligated to reveal that information to the National Assembly until January 2020 at the earliest. So it's quite a potential that they've already been accumulating Bitcoin at this point in time, in which case, God hope that they weren't accumulating Bitcoin at the tops here, because they're probably all committing suicide at this point in time. But Bloomberg has reported that, quote, staffers are also studying proposals that would allow cryptocurrencies to be counted toward international reserves, now near a 3-decade low at $7.9 billion American. So they are looking to kind of prop up their their reserves of a nation by actually holding things that have more value than what Venezuela currently has, which is not a whole lot. Now, this suggests that the hydroelectric rich nation may have already gathered a significant amount of the leading cryptocurrencies and is preparing to disclose this in a future campaign. The groundwork is said to have been laid as far back as April of 2018, in which a government decree legitimized cryptocurrency as a form of payment. So is this kind of a 4D chess movement from Venezuela to escape international sanctions and have a good basket of reserve currencies and cryptocurrencies that can allow them to really mitigate the effects of sanctions against them? Yes, it is. And I think it's a pretty smart plan. What can we expect coming from the international community on this? Well, it depends on how hardcore they want to use Venezuela as a torch to kind of ignite a war against cryptocurrency. Could this be negative for Bitcoin's price? Well, if Venezuela says that they're going to be holding a basket of cryptocurrencies as part of their, as a significant part of their reserves as a nation, and the larger body of international powers wants to say, well, we're willing to go to war against cryptocurrency just to push you down, Venezuela, because we just don't like your face, dude. Then yeah, this could be absolutely negative for Bitcoin's price. Do I think it's the only thing that's going to make an effect? No, but I think it's important to watch and be aware of, because goddamn if they don't hit Venezuela. So Article 9 of that decree did stipulate that the Venezuelan government will promote and may establish cryptocurrencies as an instrument of payment. Now, while the nation will still need a domestic fiat currency in which the central bank manages the inflationary policy, government approval will mean citizens would have the ability to protect and preserve their own wealth in crypto and still have the government's blessing in converting to their national fiat and back. So again, this all comes down to giving power to those who have the least amount of power, the citizens, especially of a country that represses its own people, giving people the ability to actually hold their wealth in something that has value and can be settled into an international currency or international value, more so than the petro, which is worthless, and more so than Venezuela's national fiat, which is also worthless at current point in time, looking at exchange rates against other currencies. So let me know what you guys think about this. Is this good for Bitcoin's price? Is this bad for Bitcoin's price? There is a lovely comment section down there. And then, of course, this nice little live chat thing where I may have an opinion on your opinion. Moving right along. All right. So the ING's chief economist, Mark Cliff, I'm going to say Mark Cliff, not Mark Cliffy, will be speaking at a joint event to discuss central bank issued stablecoins. And he confirmed that the ING does hold plans of launching a digital currency of their own. Cliff went on to specify that they will be moving towards the creation of a digital currency in the next 2 to 3 years. All right. Pull up this for those of you who think I'm talking out the side of my head right here. This is the ING Group. It's a Dutch multinational banking and financial services corporation, and they are in ye olde Amsterdam. So now we all know that digital currency adoption is gaining significant momentum across the world. And we have examples of private corporate coins such as Libra, and we obviously have the JP Morgan coin. Libra is obviously set to launch in 2020. And we have, of course, as I just mentioned, interbranch settlement currencies such as the JP Morgan coin and the Wells Fargo coin, as well as the state-backed digital currencies seen from China and Venezuela as some of the first to embrace this new technology. Now, This is just another mainstream financial institution throwing their hat into the ring of digital currency development, with countless more likely cultivating similar projects under the radar. I think that we can expect in the next decade to give rise to a revolution in currency and finance. And I've said this, many, many times before. I think that in the short term, and by that I mean like 5 to 10 years, we are going to see a wild explosion and probable success of these types of instruments, right? Are they going to represent investment opportunities? No, not really. They can be used as indicators for other things that could qualify as investments. As it sits right now, stable coins are going to be fairly stable, right? One would hope. But again, this is also going to be a revolution for the foreign currency markets. I think that we are going to see a lot of nations transition away from fiat currencies as we know them today. The dollar, the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan, the American dollar, the British pound, the Canadian dollar. I think that the majority of these are going to transition to central bank issued stablecoins. The technology is better. The control is better for them. The tracking is better for them. The manipulation is easier for them. It's just a logical progression of institutions moving toward technological advancement, obviously spurred by the revolution that Bitcoin and decentralized currency is. And they want to get in there and they want to shut that down. They want to maintain control. They want to maintain power. And the only way that they can do that is by moving into this new realm of technology. So I think that we are going to see that transition happen. And what does that mean for foreign currency trading? I don't know. Is it something that could go away? It's quite possible. Are we going to be able to trade the digital dollar against the digital Canadian dollar? Are we going to be able to trade the digital yuan against the digital renminbi? Well, you can bet your bottom dollar that the big banks are not going to want to see that volatility and profit for them fade away. That is their primary source of income, in my opinion. But I digress. Now, the open discussion on the future of economic policy and technology was put on by ING and the banking think tank OMFIF. Now, they covered a range of topics regarding the major advancements in decentralized finance, along with the discussion of advantages and drawbacks of central bank issued stablecoins. Now, the ING did confirm that development of their digital currency project came in just a week after releasing their report titled From Cash to Crypto, The Money Revolution. The report did claim that despite the hype around crypto, cash will remain relevant, and the theory of a cashless future is highly unlikely. I do disagree with them on this point. Governments around the world want to transition away from cash because they want to be able to monitor and control every single transaction. Now, while paper fiat may not be disappearing right away, it's undeniable that world governments and financial regulators are coming around to accepting the ongoing innovation of currency and accounting in the 21st century, i.e., we are going to be transitioning to fully digital money. Now, the big battle comes between fully digital centralized money and fully digital decentralized money. And again, decentralized money stands as a bulwark against the centralized model. Obviously they exist in conjunction right now. And I think that duality is likely to continue for a very long period of time. I do not see Bitcoin overthrowing government issued fiat anytime soon. I do not see the nation state going away anytime soon. Humanity is a slow evolving organism, society even more so, slowly. And I think that it will take us a long time to transition to an overall better state of society, where we embrace things like ethics and philosophy and universal values. I think that these things exist. I think that they are objective, and I think that they will eventually be what we move toward as a human species. I think that we will eventually transition away from the nation-state archetype. I think that we will transition away from it really says it all there, the nation-state archetype. I think it is the big battle whether we move toward whether that transition is oppressive or liberating. Do we move toward a one world government nightmare scenario where we have just one overarching tentacle of centralized power? Or do we transition into a world, into a society where we realize that we don't need that and that people can take care of themselves and we can have structure without centralized authority? We'll see. This is the epic argument between Alexander Hamilton and Satoshi Nakamoto. All right, so let's talk about manipulation, guys. Okay, we'll take your cookies. All right, are institutional investors manipulating the Bitcoin price? Well, since the launch of the CME futures contracts, speculation has run rampant on the cash-settled market manipulation of Bitcoin's price. Now, new data coming from Arcane Research seems to support these claims. Thomas Lee from Fundstrat, for example, has been saying for over a year now that Bitcoin seems to decline right before future settlement contracts end on the CME. Arcane Research have since crunched the numbers more closely, seemingly validating these suspicions of manipulation through futures. Bitcoin's price falls on average, according to this report, around 2% ahead of CME settlements, more than both the average and median compared to any other day. Arcane also found that in only 5 times out of 20 were the days before the CME settlements. Arcane also found that in only 5 times out of 20 that the CME settled in the green. In other words, days preceding the CME settlements have been overwhelmingly negative. The drops preceding CME settlement closes also seem to be worse whenever Bitcoin has posted more returns for the month. The drastic drops preceding each settlement closing, especially on the CME, points towards some level of price manipulation occurring. So, we just talked about this. Wally, this is good. This is good that we have this article because this is going to add nuance. Now, according to Arcane Research, they're saying that only 5 times out of 20 in their research did the CME settle in the green, meaning that it would seem to come from this argument that if you just took at this a base level analysis, it would say a short trade is the better trade to go. The problem is you need to look at where the futures contract opened up at, right? You need to look at where the futures contract opened up at, because all they're saying is that on average, price settles 2% lower on expiration day. Okay. Now, for some traders, that 2% is going to be all that they want and all that they need. But of course, as trend traders, we're looking for far more significant movements in the market. And what happens directly after those settlements? Does price move in the opposite direction? Does price consolidate for a long period of time? Does price continue to move down? As I said, there would seem to be weak directional bias confirmation here and ideas of market manipulation. But I don't think that this information or this knowledge is going to be germane to many traders. First off, we don't have a lot of data. CME futures have been around not very long. So short-term data is not great to go off of, especially when you're looking at how many times contracts expire, which is even less than about the 18 months that the CME futures have been around. A little bit longer than that, but I digress. And I would say that 75% of the time, price closing 2% lower on expiration date. I don't know. You can take that information as you will. Again, as I said, I don't really see the usefulness of this information to me as a trader. And because it does not, as I said, the main problem here is that it does not give you directional bias. Now, if this is kind of an addendum trade that you want, it seems that 75% is a pretty strong hit rate. So if in the days, all I can take away from this is it would seem that in the days leading up to the CME futures, one might want to be short and then look to close that short out at expiration, right? We have to understand, though, that price is going to diverge. When you're trying to take, mark to minute prices like that, price is going to diverge on the CME futures as opposed to spot index prices. So take the information as you will. I don't think that it's supremely helpful or interesting, but of course, we do have market manipulation coming in from the CME. We have market manipulation all over cryptocurrency. Whales manipulate price, but they don't just manipulate price. It's not just all price manipulation. Manipulation does occur in the cryptocurrency markets, but there's also supply and demand. And coming in, just a honorable mention here. Coming in from the Motley Fool is MasterCard announcing we talked about this a little bit before, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more information. MasterCard announcing their new blockchain payment system and Square hiring some more Bitcoin developers. Just some positive news to kind of end up that market manipulation on a positive note. Do you guys think it's possible that blockchain technology is going to disrupt the global payment system? We've kind of talked about this before. I think that it's absolutely possible, but not necessarily as a medium of exchange. Again, I comport with with Saif Adeyemi's argument that we don't actually need Bitcoin to be the currency that does the transaction. It is the settlement layer Does Bitcoin represent the future of money? Absolutely. And if so, how can we position ourselves to profit from these trends? So these are questions that powerful companies, including MasterCard and Square, appear to be asking for themselves. So moreover, these financial innovators are taking action to prepare their businesses to compete and win in a crypto-based world. So just good information coming in here. Now, MasterCard has partnered with R3, they of the Ripple blockchain. I don't really think that's absolutely fantastic choice for them, but I digress. Square and Square has obviously hired quite a few people to build up their services here. So, article will be linked in the description if you guys want to learn a little bit more about this. I just thought it would be good to kind of end on a positive note. So, with that being said, guys, let's get back over into the live stream.